I mean, you don't even hear about bank robberies anymore, do you?
So if you work in a bank, you do. So a branch that I was in got robbed.
No shit.
Yep. So,
Were you there?
yep. So I was in the back. We were doing oh, so funny. Well, it's not funny, but I find it funny. Because the guy only got away with like not even $500 and got arrested for it. So I'm like, haha, idiot. So he basically, the classic one, like, you see the movies, the hold up, everyone, blah, 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 get down. That doesn't really happen like that, knock on wood, hopefully, because I'd feel bad if anyone I know is still in the bank that has to deal with that. Normally, it's like someone passing a note. Very simple. They'll act normal or be in a weird disguise. Like this guy had like a weird neck brace on and like a wig with a hat and like was trying to disguise himself. Passes a note that's just like maybe like, I don't remember what it said exactly, but like, oh, I have a gun, like give me all the money, this and that. And then, I mean, they teach you to comply. They would rather you not die on, like, that's nice. I'm like, thank you for not wanting me to risk my life.
So is there a secret button to press underneath like you see in the movies?
Sometimes.
Really?
Sometimes there's a button. Sometimes there's, like, bait money so that they'll try and give you that, and it'll, like, either,
the die pack exploding thing?
Yeah, die pack exploding.
Nice.
There's also cases I saw recently. I think a Dunbar truck got robbed of $1 million from two people at gunpoint, but they got caught because one of the cases had a little air tag in it, the new Apple things.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was kind of amusing that like it wasn't a die pack, it was like the new little like secret disc that they were able to locate the people.
Okay, welcome to the Angel Research Podcast. My name is Jason Freiert, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Sara.
Woo!
Sara from the videos from Angel Publishing.
That's right.
So I'm going to start this off with a quote that you may or may not heard from the famous bank robber.
The Hamburglar.
No, his name was Willie Sutton. And I think this was after he was arrested. And he asked, why does he rob banks? And his response was, because that's where the money is.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one before?
No.
But so I guess that leads into the start of this. Is that where the money is?
Guys, there is money in banks.
So you worked at a bank. What bank can you share? Like you're not under a non-disclosure agreement or anything. Can you share what bank and what
I think
you did?
so. I was actually wondering that.
If not, we'll bleep it out.
Yeah. So I worked at two banks. I worked first at Capital One, and then I worked for PNC. Capital One's kind of, I guess, throughout the nation, but I think PNC is more East Coast.
I am a Capital One customer.
Good.
Yeah.
I love Capital One. PNC is okay. But
yeah, they're a little bit more. I think they aren't around anymore. Didn't they get bought by somebody?
No, they're still around.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Capital One I like personally. But yeah, I worked for both of them. Was in management for both, for like the teller supervisor, lead teller, whatever, like did branch leadership team, but on the teller side of things. So I did a lot of cash handling, customer interactions, account stuff, management, all that jazz. So
yeah, I had not known this until we started talking about various banking stuff, and you were like, yeah, I know all about it. I used to work at a bank. So one of the stories that comes up with that Brian tells, and I had my own story about this, is just what exactly happens when you go into a bank and you want to withdraw a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
So his story was basically back in 2007. I think he was like trying to get a decent amount of cash out, like $20,000, like at a time. The last time I was going on a trip somewhere, and I think I was going to Vegas or something, and I probably went and like withdrew like $5,000 in cash, and they were like, what are you using this for? And I'm like, none of your bit. I think I told them. I was just like, I'm going on vacation. And they're like, okay. So, but you were telling me about exactly what needs to happen when someone withdraws that much money.
Yeah, so $5,000, they're probably just wondering because, I mean, just
They're
for
curious.
security purposes and to do like anti-money laundering. There's usually like quarterly trainings and stuff that every employee has to do to kind of just show that they're doing what's within the law and making sure that they're kind of covering their butt in case anyone's doing any type of structuring or whatever. So normally, if you do any type of transaction at a bank that surpasses $10,000 in cash, they'll report it to the government with a CTR, which stands for Currency Transaction Report. And basically, they'll ask for your ID. They usually ask for your social security number and maybe your job. Like they get some personal information from you, which a lot of the times they'll already have because it's your own account, and
Right.
they'll usually just try and fill in what they can without you really realizing it. But it's not a bad thing. It's really just for anti-money laundering, just to make sure that all businesses and stuff are legit. Honestly, if you're going on vacation and you're just like, yeah, I'm going on vacation, I want to spend money in cash, like I can do whatever I want, there's like, okay, cool. But if you're like, oh, I don't want them to know about my business, which I get. I don't like people knowing my business either. But if you're constantly going in there and you're like, I'll just withdraw like $9,000 or I'll just deposit $9,800 and not breach that 10, they'll do a separate report, which would be for suspicious, like you being sus. And they're like, oh, if you have got nothing to hide, like why are you being like weird about it? Just do the 10,000, whatever you want, you know?
Right. So one transaction, because people, the $10,000 thing, I think is like kind of I remember there was an episode of Sopranos where like he was doing that, or the wife was, right? The wife knew that he had a bunch of cash in the bank, or money in the bank, and was like going and like taking out like 9,999 at a time and like stashing it. So I think that $10,000 number is kind of known by people, but you're saying like if people try to avoid that by doing the 9,500 thing,
Yeah,
then
they have
they're gonna be like, if it just once or is it multiple times?
It depends. It really all depends on the teller you go to. Like for me, if you're acting suspicious and you're acting weird about it, there is usually, I think it's called a suspicious incident report, and it doesn't even have to be with that. It could be with anyone being weird, like trying to ask too many like questions that you're like, why are you curious about this kind of thing? But
So
no,
that's
so
training that you do on the tellers.
side of thing, yeah. So
Okay.
it's like, oh, if you are looking, because when you're from the teller side, when someone's coming to withdraw money, they're looking for a lot of things. They're looking for the account history, how long your account has been open, how long the funds have been available, where you got the funds from to begin with. Does your account normally have this much in it, or did you randomly, does your account usually have a balance of $200 and all of a sudden you randomly got this check for 10 grand? Like they're just looking for any type of red flag to just kind of cover not only themselves, but also you, because there's a lot of fraud incidents when people just don't know any better and they think that, which is a story I can get into in a bit, but like with check availability, you could deposit a check and it shows that it's available in your account the next day. Doesn't necessarily that the funds have been cleared from the account that check was drawn on. So they're just trying to really protect you, because if you were to withdraw that and all of a sudden plot twist that check, there's actually no money in that account, then they're going to take that money back out of your account when you also just withdrew it. So now you're negative like 20 grand or something.
Okay, so let's go through this. So you get a check. Say you have $500 in your account, and then you get a check from somebody, and it's for 5 grand, and you deposit it, and you're saying then you go the next day, and you're like, I want to take out $4,000.
Yeah, they might be like, oh, where'd you get this check from? They might even be able to see
Right.
the image of the check already on their
Right.
system to be like, oh, like, did you sell an old car? Did you just to make
Yeah,
sure
how
that
long
the
does
funds
that
are
normally
legitimate?
take though? Because when I deposit something now, usually it says, now I know like payroll checks, they usually like say like, oh, these funds are available like immediately. But like if I deposit like say like a $600 check, usually they're like, you have $100 available of this now, and I guess they're waiting to see if it clears.
So some of that, it varies per bank and also per your account. So if you went to the bank that you've been banking with for years, you'll usually have your funds available faster than if I were to
Yeah.
just walk into a random bank, open up an account, deposit $10,000, and they're going to be like, you don't have an account history to show that these funds are legitimate. Like we need to protect our own assets by not giving all of this to you right away. But if it was like, oh, like I've been banking with whatever bank for so long, and I deposit a check for 10,000, it might be available the next day, or it could be like, oh, since this is out of the norm for me, because I would love if anyone wants to write me a check for 10 grand just out of the kindness of their heart, go right ahead, but it won't be available for me right away because that's out of the norm. So they'd probably say like, oh, maybe 1,000. I keep doing this. 1,000 is available the next day, and maybe you'll have the rest available in like a handful of business days.
Right. So so you're talking about the tellers looking for these things. Are any of these things like automated, like when they're looking in like the computer, or this is all just training? So it really depends on, like,
What you mean? So
you
like,
mean
yeah.
like, hey, here's this check, like, and they're like putting it in. Do they like, are they alerted? Like, hey, this person usually only has $500 in their account. Now they have 10,000. Like, ask them these questions, or is it just something they're supposed
That
to
they're
just?
supposed to just know and
Okay.
know what to look for. It's not like, oh, I'm at least from the banks that I've experienced. I don't know what other banks like security things are like, but yeah, you're supposed to kind of like go through the transaction history, check their signature if it's not a known customer, because a lot of the times now, like the people that go in banks are usually kind of regulars, and you start to get familiar with them. But yeah, no, it's all just based on the teller doing their due diligence.
So if the teller is in on it, then that's an issue.
Exactly. So if you got a man on the inside,
An inside
but I mean,
job.
at the same time, like, yeah, they could allow you to make this withdrawal, but then if your account, that check was invalid or there wasn't sufficient funds, it would be whoever's account that was that messed up to begin with.
Right. How often are people, at least when you were there, coming in to withdraw large amounts of cash?
So the branches that I worked at were in an area where I feel like people dealt with a lot of cash, mainly because I feel like there's like, again, just kind of a weird, not a stigma with banks, but sometimes people just prefer cash. I'm not one of those people. I hate having cash on me, honestly. It was, for me, people were withdrawing a decent amount because for me, like having $1,000 in cash on you is a lot of money to me because I'm like, what life do you live? But it was pretty frequent. If you needed anything like specific bills or like a larger than normal amount, we would ask that you would let us know in advance if you knew it so that we could like order it from whatever cash servicing, whether it was one of the Brinks trucks, Dunbar, whoever works within your branch, just so that we could at least make sure that we had the bills that you want, because you don't want to withdraw $20,000 and it's in like 2 bricks of 20s, which is like what, literally 20 of the straps, which is 2,000 each. That's a lot, but like there's times if you need it that day, we can get it for you, but it might just not be in the bills that you want because
Right.
people would prefer to have like a little discreet envelope rather than being like, I'm carrying out a bag of cash.
Right. How much money is actually at the bank?
Also depends on location, because there are some businesses that would come in and do their deposits and have bags upon bags, or a lot of banks also have something called a night drop when businesses will sign up with that. So if they're like not able to come during regular business hours, they'll drop it in. You'd open it up with 2 people. There's a lot of security measures. You really don't know how to open up anything normally with just one person unless it's your own personal vault. So it's like,
Really?
Yeah, so it's like I had control of one of the vaults, so I knew all of that, but in order to like open up the main door to open the vault, I needed at least like me and one other person.
Is it like the turn 2 keys at the same time thing like you see in the movies?
So that's more like safe deposit boxes, which also are pointless in my opinion. But no, it'd just be like a dial kind of thing, or just like a key code, and you would either know like the first half, I know the second half, or depending on, it might be split between 3 people depending on the location. So just to kind of also be secure, so that no employee was like, oh, I know the code to your vault. Let me just go in real quick and just grab a little handful of hundreds.
So why do you think safety deposit boxes are pointless?
Because they are. Sorry for yelling. Because they're uninsured. So a lot of people think like, yeah, let me keep all my valuables in a branch, which like I can understand maybe if you don't have like a safe spot where you're living maybe, but like prime example, when I was working at Capital One, what hurricane was it? I want to say it was Hurricane Michael. I could be wrong, but there was a huge hurricane that went through Texas, and there were 2 branches that were completely like wiped clean off the face of the planet. So every single item in any one of those safe deposit boxes was completely gone. There's no way you can get there's no insurance on it. You can't get any of that back. But at least if you have this stuff in like a fire safe at your home, that can be put under your homeowner's insurance. So there's a little bit of some type of security there.
Right.
But with the safe deposit box, it's like you need to be there during business hours. Like, you have the space, I guess, but like,
Yeah, what are
other
you
than
gonna even if you knew the hurricane was coming, and it's like the middle of the night, you're gonna run like they're gonna be like, sorry, we're not.
yeah, it's
You
like,
can't
sorry,
get
no one's
in.
there. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not my problem.
That's wild, and they don't because it's not like they even ask you what's in it, right?
Yeah, like, we're not supposed
That's
to
the whole
know.
idea is that no one knows what's in your safety deposit box at a
Exactly.
bank.
Yeah, we'll let you in, do the dual key. They'll have one key that we don't have whatsoever. Like, we have the branch key, but it can't be open unless we also have the customer key, so
Right.
they have to be there. And in order to, like, if you lose your key, we have to schedule someone to come drill the box. It's not like we have some secret spare in the back. Like, the whole thing needs to be
Right.
drilled. You have to be present. A branch member has to be present, and then you go into a room to like do your business and bring it out. But yeah, like, if it's when we're closed, like one time, what was it? It was like a Saturday after we closed. Someone's banging on the door. I need my passport. It's in the safe deposit box. We're like, sorry, we're
yeah.
closed. Like, come when we're open, or keep your passport at your freaking house. Like, what?
Yeah, that's wild. I remember years ago we were talking about storing physical gold and coins, and that's obviously very valuable. And my understanding is the Patriot Act, one of the laws that they put into place during that was the idea that if there was a bank holiday declared, that the bank could essentially, I don't know if it was the bank or the owners of the bank or just anybody, had the right to basically go in to people's safety deposit boxes, and if they had any gold or guns or ammo in there, they could basically like take those to be used. I don't know the exact. Are you familiar with
No,
this?
yeah, there's no way. The only way that we could have gone into a safe deposit box was if a branch was closing and we were trying to contact you to be like, hey, the branch is closing, come get your stuff.
Yeah. What
And
happens if no one picks it up?
so that actually got a good story with that one too. Someone was storing about $500,000 cash in their safe deposit box that we had to go in and count because their contact info wasn't updated, and the branch was closing, and they're consolidating and moving stuff, and we had to go in with two people because, again, just for security purposes, like, we had to get it drilled, had the guy come out to drill it for us to open it, had to have at least two branch members in there, and then we're like, holy shit, this is a lot of cash. Gotta go through to count it because you have to fill out a form saying like date, this and that, whatever safe box number, and then what was logged in there. And then you have to put it in a tamper-evident bag, which is like what we'd use to ship out money and stuff with our like Dunbar or whoever. Yeah, and then just hope that they contact you and just keep it in a safe.
So the branch was closing, and so what did you kept that in a safe, and would you move it to the new branch, or like?
We eventually were able to contact the people, and they came
Right.
to pick it up, and they asked for a
Imagine-
police escort. But like,
Yeah, imagine you just have $500,000, and you're like, oh, I guess, and you don't.
yeah, you're
even-
like, oh yeah, oh,
don't keep your-
whatever happened with that? Yeah, imagine.
So I mean, that that's people. Yeah, so people can keep that much in. So it almost sounds like, I mean, shoot, the value in those banks is more probably in the safety deposit boxes than actually in the cash there. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, if you were to
Like,
rob
if
that
people-
bank and there's only like $20,000 cash, but there's 500 in the safety deposit box.
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing. Is like you need the person, unless you somehow magically have like a secret drilling thing, and
I've watched in movies. It looks so easy in the movies.
But you also, like, where the boxes are, you have to go in there with the branch member. So unless
Mm-hmm.
you have someone on the inside, or you are the person on the inside and you know how to drill into these boxes, there's really no way you're going to be able to get in there unless you have the person's key.
Yeah, so let's talk about bank robberies. Is that, I mean, are you suspicious of people like all the time coming in like looking sketchy, like, hey, is this guy gonna rob a bank? I mean, you don't even hear about bank robberies anymore, do you?
So if you work in a bank, you do. So a branch that I was in got robbed.
No shit.
Yep. So
Were you there?
Yep. So I was in the back. We were doing it. Oh, so funny. Well, it's not funny, but I find it funny. Because the guy only got away with like not even $500 and got arrested for it. So I'm like, haha, idiot. So he basically, the classic one, like, you see the movies, the hold up, everyone, blah, 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 get down. That doesn't really happen like that, knock on wood, hopefully, because I'd feel bad if anyone I know is still in the bank that has to deal with that. Normally, it's like someone passing a note. Very simple. They'll act normal. or be in a weird disguise. Like this guy had like a weird neck brace on and like a wig with a hat and like was trying to disguise himself. Passes a note that's just like maybe like I don't remember what it said exactly, but like, oh, I have a gun, like give me all the money, this and that. And then, I mean, they teach you to comply. They would rather you not die on,
Yeah.
like, that's nice. I'm like, thank you for not wanting me to risk my life.
So
for
is there a secret button to press underneath like you see in the movies?
Sometimes.
Really?
Sometimes there's a button. Sometimes there's, like, bait money so that they'll try and give you that, and it'll, like, either,
The die pack exploding thing?
Yeah, die pack exploding.
Nice.
There's also cases I saw recently. I think a Dunbar truck got robbed of $1 million from 2 people at gunpoint, but they got caught because one of the cases had a little air tag in it, the new Apple things.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was kind of amusing that like it wasn't a die pack, it was like the new little like secret disc that they were able to locate the people. So I mean, I haven't worked at a bank in like 5 years now, but how long have I been here? Yeah, so like 3-4 years, I guess. But yeah, no. So it all depends. I mean, what happened in my scenario was the guy got out. I don't think he got the die pack whatsoever. He left. The teller.
And they're just robbing from like the register. Like how much of the money is in the registers, and then how much is in the vault?
Yeah, the vault. Yeah. So at the registers, normally they try to not have like a set amount up front specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, like if you did.
Come on, John.
Sorry, that was my fault. Yeah, so I have to check into my flight. Anyway, so, so wait, go back to the question.
So you come in,
so
so there's registers, right?
Yeah, so registers.
And there's a certain amount of money in the register, and then there's a certain amount of money in the vault, and they're like, hey, I want $10,000. So like, I only have like $500 here. Let me go back. And
exactly. So a lot of the times, like a regular teller might have a little locker in the back that they keep extra money. So just say you're a normal teller, one of the regular businesses comes in and they deposit like $12,000, and then they would take that deposit, and then usually after that customer, the business owner, they wouldn't help anyone else. They'd kind of get it all strapped, and they'd either sell it, quote unquote, basically just transferring ownership to the person that runs the main vault, or just store it in the back for now so they don't have all that cash up front.
So you say sell, so that's all like...
that's just like a banking term. So like I had one of the main vaults, so like I'd have all the boxes of coins, a bunch of different ones, and like so if you have a bank business customer coming in and they need to get 1,001s, but you only have 300, you'd be like, oh, can I buy 701s from you? There's not an actual like buying process. Obviously, I'm giving you physical money. I'd be basically handing it over to you, putting it in the system. We both kind of sign off on it, and then you count to verify that I actually just gave you $700. Because I wrote 700, but you never know. I could have taken a few before I handed it to you, and if you're not doing your due diligence and like counting it to verify, like I could have just basically robbed that bank, but it's on you because I just sold it to you, and it's now your responsibility. If that makes sense.
Interesting. So they keep track of that. So the whole idea of like, hey, what's up? Your register is short. That's like on you.
Yeah, it's your fault. So there's times when there's been a difference in the tellers because, you have to balance your drawer at the beginning and the end of your shift. So yeah, if there's a time when like, oh, I'm short $100 or $1,000. Like there's a time I was short $7,000. Oh my God. I was terrified. I was like, wow, about to get fired. It was in the back in my little cabinet, hidden under a piece of paper that I threw back there, not realizing it. And I was just panicking, and I had to have my manager come, and someone has to come and count through all your stuff to make sure that what you're entering is accurate. And it was just me just having a day and just looking over, just glimpsed over that $7,000. But yeah, no, or you can't find it, and then we're kind of going through your transactions. Like, okay, you had this cash come in, this and that, and that's why they're really like they want you to, when you're giving this cash out, you enter in the amount in each denomination. So it's like if you're coming in and you're asking for a bunch of change for your business, like however many 10s, 5s, and 1s, you can't just be like, oh, I just gave them 10,001s. You want to put like, oh, I gave them the 7,010s, the 2,005s, the 1,001, so that like if shit hits the fan and you need to go look back at all your stuff, like it shows that you're at least doing all the precautionary steps to make sure that you're kind of giving them the right amount and not giving them too much or whatever.
And I'm assuming like there's cameras everywhere
Oh,
as well. So
everywhere.
it's not like, oh, just like then you could go back and be like, oh, hey, look, this guy reached in and freaking grabbed some shit.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Cameras.
So I mean, I think more likely, let's talk about fraud, right?
Yeah.
So checks and things made out to cash.
Yes.
Is like, what's the most common sort of type of fraud you at least witnessed, like attempted?
So I would say the most frequent one would be people finding out people's account information and making fake checks and having the balls to come into a branch and cashing it themselves. Another story with that, when we caught a guy, that was like a huge adrenaline rush for me. So, there was a guy that came into one of our neighboring branches, came in with his fake ID. If you're usually not a customer, you have to show two forms of ID, like a primary one, like a driver's license or a passport, and then a secondary form, like a debit card or something that at least just shows your name on it. So he went to a certain branch with this check to cash. Want to cash this check? Here's my two forms of ID, blah, blah, blah. But then when they were doing their due diligence, looking at the account that this check is drawn off of, because it's a non-customer cashing a customer's check. So we're doing all that we can because it's not like we're going to be able to chase this guy down. So looking at everything, but then they see some red flags. The guy starts getting suspicious, gets his stuff and just leaves. Like he's like, oh, I'm late for a meeting. I'm just going to go. Because once you're starting to take too long, then they get nervous and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to get arrested.
You're in the back like, hey, come here, look at this. Does this look legit?
Yeah, does this look exactly. Does this look sus to you? And like that'll happen so many times. And like that's why if we are aware that it's wrong, we try and stall them because we're also trying to call the cops and get them arrested. So this guy comes in, it's the middle of the day. There's an email goes out, warning, like this guy tried to cash this check at this location. He was wearing these blue jeans, this white shirt. He's about 5'7", no hair, blah, 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 this and that. So and they showed the photo of the fake ID that he used because they were able to take that and scan it and stuff. So we're like, okay, whatever. Let's see if this guy has the balls to try it at any other branch. And he did. And it was my branch. And boy, was he an idiot for that. So I start doing what at the time they called lobby leading, which is basically just having a little greeter out front, which is another thing that they think deters people from robbing it, because having someone right up front and being like, I see you, like, welcome to the branch. And then they're like, already too nervous.
Be like right up in right
Yeah, and then be like, oh, what? Oh, it's also to help
and plus,
customers.
Like, you're very intimidating too.
Oh, I am. Oh, look at me. But yeah, no. So it's also not just to deter robbers, but also to actually help customers, because some people might think that they need to go to the teller line to do something, but they actually need to see a banker and vice versa, just to make sure that we're kind of getting the feng shui of everything going. But in comes this mofo with the blue jeans and the white shirt and the 5'8" and the bald head, and I'm like, instantly, I'm just like, oh, welcome, blah, blah, blah. And then
you knew instantly?
Instantly, I had a feeling. So, and by that time, I had printed out the paper of the fake IDs and put it at the side of every teller. And then he goes over to my girl, Allison. Shout out, Allison. We have the same birthday. He was a teller that she went up to, and that was probably the perfect person because she is so good at just like charming people. She has got a great personality, can talk to like anyone. And like he gives the ID, this and that, and I like go up to my computer, which is right next to her, and I point to the paper of his ID, the photocopy of the ID at the previous one. She takes it and puts it right next to it. Same exact photo, same information, just a different state. So instantly we're like, bet, got him. So I go to the back, call the cops. He's here. Like this guy's trying to check fraud. And it's not like, he's trying to technically rob us in a way, but he would be taking money from some just like poor random customer's account. So we go. She goes and makes a photocopy of the debit card and the ID that he's using now. We're like, oh, yeah, just talking. What do you got plans? Oh, we have a business meeting that I have to head to, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Trying to stall him again as much as we can. And he ends up getting antsy and is like, you know what? Like, this is taking too long, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm going to be late. Like, just give me my stuff and go. So we're trying to take our time.
How much money was the check?
I don't fully remember. It was definitely under $10,000, but a couple $1,000, maybe like 4 or something. So he starts to get his stuff and go, and I like know that the cops are on their way. I'm like, they're pretty, like, I know that they're close. Like, I just want to get this guy. I was like just feeling like a little detective or something. And then he goes out, and I did something you're not supposed to do. I went outside to follow him, not to follow him, but to kind of see where he went in case the cops were coming, so I could be like, that's him. And how the branch was, it was on Route 40. For those of you who don't know, it's like you go one way, you either have to make a U-turn. There's no, like, I don't know. Anyway, so he's starting to come out, and we shared the same parking lot as like a few other buildings. So there's a couple ways to enter from the street. And the cops pull in as this guy's walking. So he's like walking. The branch is here. I run out. I am staying at the front, watching this guy walking, pretending to be on the phone as the cop pulls up. And, he's just trying to act discreet, like, I'm not anything. And me in the back looking at the cop, like, I'm like quietly, like, that's the guy, like, who I just called. And then I see the cop slam on the brake, roll the window down. Next thing you know, the guy's sitting on the curb in handcuffs. And I was like, yeah. Gotcha, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, try me. And then, I was like, my heart was racing, and we had some regulars in the branch who were like, okay, like, blah, blah, blah. And, I just felt like I was like, no big deal. Got him.
Did you have to testify against him and they press charges? They probably didn't even do charges on him.
Yeah, I didn't have to testify. There is a possibility. There have been times in the past when they have had to do that, but, like, no, I'd never experienced having to go to
So
court.
Say that happened. Or say he was successful in getting through, the teller missed it or whatever, and the money was withdrawn, and then like the next day or week, or the customer's like, dude, like, I didn't freaking like
do this.
Yeah, like what's the recourse on there?
So also depends on the branch, so or like the bank and the branch and kind of how the transaction happens. So like with certain amounts, like any teller could have withdrawn that much. Like, if it was a $4,000, it might have been on that teller that did it for not doing the due diligence, and they could either get fired, they could have to do more training, it could just be on them, and then they're just trying to help with the customer to get that money back. But if it was like a larger amount, like just say they're trying to withdraw $15,000, and since you're a new teller, you can only do withdrawals of $5,000, and then if anyone wants any more, you need a supervisor approve it. So then if I approved it without because now I am taking ownership. Mm-hmm. So I would be coming in, looking at everything to make sure that, and I might ask the teller, like, oh, where's this money from? Like, blah, 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 just to make sure that they know what I'm looking for. And if I signed off on it, and
then
it was
it's sort of on you.
Then I messed up, and it would have been my problem to.
But I mean, would the customer get their money back? It's just proven that, like, hey, you fuckers gave my money to the wrong person.
Honestly, I feel like, I don't even know. I would, like, in those incidents, it's like a whole, now it's completely out of the branch hands. It's within our, like,
the corporate
stuff,
arena.
and they're handling it. And a lot of the
I'm
times,
assuming if they had, like, look, you can prove that this wasn't you that withdrawed it, like, they're gonna, but then they're gonna come back on whoever exactly.
That's just like if you do any type of, like, if there's credit card fraud that you have, just say, oh, some random person bought hundreds of dollars of whatever on my card, and they're like, okay, we'll give you a new card, we're going to give you the credit back, but it takes 90 days. So
they do an investigation and all that.
And they might do a temporary credit, but then if it turns out, no, it was just your wife was going on a spending spree that you didn't know about, and then they'll just put that transaction right back on your account.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up too is because we had talked about the most recent 60 Minutes piece about the sort of grandma scam that's going on, where people pretend to be and they're contacting your grandma. Hey, they would contact your grandma. Hey, it's Sara, grandma. It sounds like you. You know what I mean? I need, can you wire me $2,000 because I'm in this country and I lost my wallet. And then, like, your grandma's nice and wants to do it and does it. And then, a couple of weeks later, like, yeah, did you, like, no, grandma, that wasn't me. That was some
rando.
Person. Yeah. And so, but basically what they're saying is, at least according to this piece, is that they're basically shit out of luck on the money because they were the actual ones
to send it out.
Whereas this is sort of like,
someone
you're pretending to be someone, like, okay, it wasn't me. Whereas, like, no, like, you're kind of like a dumbass for
doing
like,
that.
Yeah.
No, in those situations too, because I mean, when you are wiring money, when you're in a branch, the banker is also supposed to be looking out for you and asking these questions like, oh, what is this for? Like, are you purchasing something? Like, blah, blah, blah. Because a lot of the times when it's a legitimate wire, there's like a whole page. This is all the wire information. Like if people are buying a home or something, they'll have all that information. Be like, oh, I'm buying a house. Like, okay, this makes sense. So you can even look up the company. All this information that they have on this printed out piece of paper is on their website or something. So yeah, in those situations, normally if someone's like, my granddaughters, they'd be like, is this accurate? Like, who called you? This and that. Like,
did you actually, are you sure? Why don't you call them again? So we had, and this is, on the business side of things, we had occasionally I will get calls from our bank that says like, hey, this payment or wire was initiated for this business account, and they kind of know that like, hey, you were paying this monthly bill that was going to this particular account, and now it's changed, and so they will be like, did you mean for it to change? Is it aware that it's changed? And they're like, and I remember one time they're like, I'm like, I don't know, like our accountant like said it, changed, and they actually dig in. They're like, well, did you find out via email? Did you call the person? They suggest you call the person and like verify that it is. And it just seems like this more and more so when you were at the bank, was it mostly in-person stuff, or were you dealing with shit over the phone too?
So a lot of the times it would be something in person, or like if someone already had been in some type of fraud situation, they were coming in to like clarify it.
Right.
But there was a time when someone was calling because they were like, I'm in this scenario and it seems kind of suspicious. Like, can you just like listen to me and tell me if it's accurate or not? And I will tell the story. So it had to do with kind of the whole check availability and stuff like that. So this lady was selling like a piece of exercise equipment. Let's say, I don't remember how much she was selling it for. Let's say she was selling it for $2,000. And someone reaches out to her like, hey, I'd be more than happy to buy your piece of exercise equipment. I'd be happy to like buy it from you for $2,500. But I need you to pay the people to come pick it up. So what I'll do is I'll write you a check for like $4,000. You get this amount for like withdraw this amount to give to the person to pick up, and then you can keep the remaining $2,500. And then they'll be pressuring you to be like, do it now, do it now, do it now, because you got the check, you deposited it. It says it's available for a second because of how your account history is, and normally you deposit like legitimate checks. But if you give that time, oh, got a hair on my scrunchie, awkward. Anyway, but if you give it time and they actually try to clear those funds from that account that the check was written off of, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, insufficient funds. None of this money is legitimate. So what they're trying to do is like kind of entice you like, oh, I'll actually give you more than what you're offering. But if you can just take some of this money I'm going to give you to give to this person instead, but do it now, or else like.
And that's kind of the core of the whole Nigerian Prince scam, right? Like where they say, hey, I have this money, I need to move it to a bank and you can keep some of it, but I need you to
transfer this amount or something.
And then it ends up so did anybody
get caught with that?
Yeah.
So no, but there was also an old customer who I also loved. He was so adorable, but he almost got, but he was smart and knew that something was wrong. And he was like, I'm going to go into my bank and I'm going to talk to them about it. But basically someone had hacked his online banking and contacted him. And it was like, oh, we were supposed to credit you $1,000, but we accidentally credited you $10,000. You need to wire us $9,000 of that dollars because we made a mistake on our end. But then if you looked at his transactions, all they did was they went onto his own online banking and transferred his $10,000 out of his savings account into his checking account. So it looked like, all of a sudden there's this big influx in your checking account, but it was his own money. And it's just like they just had access to his online stuff and then contacted him like, yeah, we accidentally credited you too much. Can you go in and like give us the rest back kind of thing?
Wow.
Right? And I was like, dang, y'all suck. Oh my God, don't hurt this old man. He was so sweet. And I was like, we got this. He was so shaken up. Like even to this day, I feel so bad that he had experienced that, but I'm glad we caught it at least. But
yeah, so that's I guess another good question, the different types of accounts. I'm assuming I don't know. You could look at it one way or the other. Having a bunch of different types of accounts to like do that, or is it better to just have one? Like, Do you have any recommendations?
You're honestly, that's funny that you're asking because I'm kind of insane, as you know. I have way too many bank accounts because my brain doesn't function like a normal person, and I need to like visually see like this is my regular checking account, this is the money I transfer money to for my bills to come out of, this is my savings account, this is my savings account specifically for traveling, and I have another account that's for like my dog, just because dogs do dumb stuff all the time, and he ate stuff and needed to call poison control, and I don't know. I'm like, he's gonna cost me money at some point. So no, I have money all over the place, but I'm also very mindful of my online banking. I change my passwords when needed. I do the 2-step authentication, whatever. Like, definitely have complicated passwords. I know it can be hard to remember, but like updating it frequently. That was a huge thing working at a bank. Like, we had to change all of our logins like every 90 days. So we were forced to, but it kind of taught me to start doing that with my own personal stuff, because I mean, all the fraud now seems to be digital. Like my best friend, she's gotten credit card fraud so many times. I'm like, I don't even understand how you have so much credit card fraud, but like just simply that. Like if you have the same password for everything, like spoiler alert, that's going to end up biting you in the ass someday.
Yeah, because you can get compromised, and it's definitely, I mean, one of the reasons that I wanted to get into this, because it seems like more and more fraud scams are out there. You have to be like just very suspicious about, text messages that you get, that say,
yeah,
hey,
random links. Oh, yeah.
I got one and so I'm the same, but I have accounts in multiple institutions too, because I just feel like, hey, I mean, especially after the Silicon Valley thing and all this, it's like, look, if this bank has an issue, like you don't want to have all your, just
eggs
like
in one basket.
Yeah. So it does create a little bit of, it's tougher to manage though, because you're like, oh, I got this account in here that has to pay, and then you have to link them, and if you want to transfer money and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, after COVID, it was like, the banks weren't even open. You had to do everything digitally. And I think people took advantage a lot of the fact that you didn't even have to. Like you said, someone might have the balls. Very few people are going to have the balls to actually go in and try to forge a check and cash this thing. But when it's just over the phone and you can kind of just hang up, it just like the cost of that becomes, it drops drastically.
Yeah.
So people have to be vigilant out there and always be suspicious.
Yeah.
Right.
Honestly.
Any other tips or takeaways you'd take from your lovely time in the banking sector?
Just to kind of another note on like fraud thing. That's why personally I'm huge on using my credit card for everything. But don't spend money you don't have. That's how they get you. You want to be a bank's least favorite customer like me. I got the cash rewards card. I use it, paid off completely. I've only probably in the 7 years I've had a credit card, I think I've paid $8 in interest, and I get at least $300 cash back every year minimum. So they hate me, but I do what I want. But anyway,
they're counting on that one time.
Yeah, that I mess up.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I would agree, because like you said, your recourse on purchases on a credit card are way easier than
if it's like
physically money out of the account, which is, so you would think, people think it's kind of all the same thing. It's like, because look, you might have a credit card with Capital One, but you might have a bank account with Capital One. It's like, oh, it's the same bank, like whatever, but like debit out of your account is way different than
worse. Yeah, so prime example, let's say you live in paycheck to paycheck, you have your rent money in your account right now that's supposed to go out tomorrow. Plot twist, you use your debit card for everything. Fraud happened on your debit card. All of that money that's your only cash, like that's your only liquid money that you have that's supposed to go towards your bills, your whatever, is gone. And all of a sudden you're like, shit, yeah, you can call the bank, but it's going to take like 90 days max to get it back.
Yeah, and you can't pay your rent with a credit card.
Exactly.
Or anything. You might be, yeah.
So if you do your stuff with your credit card and there's fraud in your card, like, yeah, that still sucks. But with the card, they'll cut that off, give you a new one, give you a temporary credit, and it's not like you have to owe on that. Like you're set, and then your actual liquid cash, which you could use for an emergency or for your bills or whatever, like is fine. So I never use my debit card except if I have to go get cash out, which is also rare because I honestly just don't like using cash.
Well, that's a topic for another episode. We actually just talked to Hammer about the everything going to cash, and there's some downfalls to that as well. So at the end of the day, you have to diversify: gold, guns, and cash.
No comment.
All right.
On that note, though, so we're good?
Yeah, we're good. Let's wrap this thing up. Thank you very much for coming on here. I think this is going to be our most popular episode.
I know.
Very
first girl guest. Little diversity up in this bad bitch.
The first female guest?
Yeah, I've hosted. I haven't. There's what?
Oh, okay.
Right?
All right. We'll get out. Don't come out. Don't try to cancel us.
I know, right? Too late.
All right.
I did just right now. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Sorry, I yell. Leave a comment below. Let me know how I did, but don't be mean. See you next time.